You've heard that Isaiah 9:6 is not about the Messiah. Now, this is an objection that usually comes from people who are contrary or who are against the Christians. It's usually the anti-missionary claim against Christian preachers. Now, this is how they usually attack the concept of Jesus Christ being the Messiah. They say that Christians are often misinterpreting Jewish texts.
You've been made wise by so much religion. You always know what to do.
Now today I want to show you something interesting. I am going to show from Jewish sources that Isaiah 9:6 is Messianic. What I'm trying to show is that Isaiah 9:6 is definitely Messianic. Now, this is how I'm going to do that. Now, there was someone called Moses Maimonides. Now, he's a very famous expositor of the Jewish texts. Now, I'm going to give us a backstory of what I'm going to show us. Now, there was someone who was presenting themselves as the Messiah. He was claiming to be the Messiah in the place called Yemen. Now, Maimonides wrote a letter, specifically called an epistle. Now, that epistle is called the Epistle to Yemen. So I'm going to leave a link of that document in the description. Now, I'm going to read for you what he wrote himself, and I want you to hear what he's saying. This is very interesting. I'm going to read from the pages 4. What I'm trying to show is from page 4 to 5. It is a short document. Now, this man has appeared in Yemen and he is claiming that he is a Messiah. Now, this is what Maimonides says. He says that, how odd is your remark about this man, the man I have told you about, that he is renowned for his meekness and little wisdom, as if this were indeed the attributes of the Messiah. Now he goes on to say, do these characteristics make him a Messiah? Now he's asking them this question. You are beguiled by him because you have not considered the pre-eminence of the Messiah. Now that is very interesting. If you're a reader of the New Testament, you will understand that the preeminence of the Messiah is not a Christian invention. It is somewhere that is scattered in the Jewish text. So he says the preeminence of the Messiah, the manner and place of his appearance. Now this is how the criteria that he presents to prove someone is a Messiah. His preeminence, very important. 2, the manner of his appearance. Now he goes on to say, and place of his appearance. So he has to appear in a specific place. Notice, the person claiming to the Messiah is in Yemen. So he's telling them, come on guys, the Messiah cannot come from Yemen. So there is where he has to appear. He goes on to say, and the marks whereby he is to be identified. The Messiah indeed ranks after Moses in eminence and distinction. Very important. Now that is drawn from Deuteronomy. So he goes on and says, and God has bestowed some gifts upon him which he did not bestow upon Moses. That means that the Messiah has special gifts. Now, this is getting more interesting. It says, as may be gathered from the following verses. Now, he gives a scripture of his proof of the gifts that the Messiah has that Moses did not have. Now, he quotes, he says, his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. That is Isaiah 11:3. So next time when someone says that the book of Isaiah is not messianic in any way, then this is a good piece to show. He said that is the first gift that the Messiah has that Moses did not have. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. That is Isaiah 11 and verse 2. It goes on and says, and righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins. Righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins. I don't know what that reminds you. It says that he loved righteousness. He loved righteousness more than his fellows. Therefore, God has anointed him above his fellows. Now, who are these fellows? From this text, you will notice that Moses is one of them. So he goes on and says, 6 appellations or titles were divinely conferred upon him, as the following passage indicates. He says, for a child is born unto us, is given unto us, and the government is upon his shoulder, and he is called Pele, that is the first. He goes on to say Yoetz, he goes on to say El, he goes on to say Gibor, he goes on to say Abiad, or everlasting father, and then he ends by saying Shar Shalom, or the prince of peace. Now that is Isaiah 9:6. And another verse alludes to him. Now, that tells you that Isaiah 9 and 6 is definitely messianic. Now, there are also other things that are very interesting when it's talking about the Messiah. So, if you look at Luke chapter number 2 and verse number 52, it says something interesting. Now, as I have pointed out, he goes on to say that knowledge, if we declare not, put trust in a man's pretensions to prophecy, if he does not excel in wisdom. So, another qualification that the Rambam gives is that the Messiah must excel in knowledge. Now that takes you to Luke 2 and 52. Now that shows you that the gospel writers were not inventing things that are unknown to the Jewish audience or the Jewish people. So he says that there is one marker of a true prophet, is that they must excel in wisdom. Notice he uses exact words that Christians have used, or the gospel writers have used. He goes on saying, Luke 2:50 says, and Jesus increased in wisdom. Now to excel means to increase in wisdom and favor with God and man. Now this proves, he says he will suddenly, now another proof that he gives is that the Messiah will suddenly appear in his temple, or God will suddenly appear in his temple. Now to prove that the Messiah must appear in Jerusalem. So the proof text is Malachi 3 and 1. Notice what John does in John chapter 1 moving through to verse 14. He says Elijah must come first and then the Messiah comes. Now these are known things in Jewish circles, not inventions. Now it is so amazing that these passages are mentioned, but there's a very interesting passage that I would really want us to learn. Now, it's in the book of Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse number 6. It says, and now, it says, and see, ask now, and see whether a man gives birth. Why then do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in labor, and all faces turned green? That is Jeremiah chapter number 30, and verse number 6. Now this is very interesting because this is its explanation. This is according to the Midrash. He says, in the explanation of Jeremiah 30 and verse 6, he says, the Gemara clarifies what is the meaning of the phrase, I see. He says, I see. Why do I see every man? So it explains why what the term every man means. And it says, what is the meaning of the phrase, I see every man? So he says, Barizak says that the Rav says it is a reference to he whom all strength is his. Now, who can that be? He explains, he says, it is as though even God will suffer like a woman in labor due to the troubles of the Jewish people. So he says that verse, Jeremiah 13 verse 6, means it is as though God will suffer like a woman in labor for the troubles of the Jewish people. Very interesting. He continues to say, and what is the meaning of the phrase, and all faces turned green? Clarifies Rabbi Yohanan says, the reference is to the heavenly entourage above, referring to angels, and the earthly entourage below, which refers to the Jewish people. So there are three identification or three subjects being discussed. One is the man holding his tummy as if he's experiencing birth pains. Now the man is identified as though God. He is identified as he whom all strength is his. Now whom can that be, if not God? So he says God will suffer. So in the Jewish understanding, they know that the concept of God suffering is not an invention of the Christians. So he says that the Jewish people who will all suffer. So this man suffers, and the Jewish people also will suffer. At the time when the Holy One, blessed be he, says this, the Jewish people are my handiwork, and those the Gentiles are my handiwork. How shall I destroy those on account of this? Now it appears that the Holy One, blessed be he, does not distinguish between the Jewish people and the Gentiles. Now this is very interesting because it is because of the suffering of this man whom is identified as he whom all strength is his. He says, because of his suffering, then they will also follow the suffering of the Jewish people, and then God will unite, meaning the suffering is linked to the unity of the Jew and the Gentiles. Now, he says, it appears that the Holy One, blessed be he, does not distinguish between the Jewish people and the Gentiles. That is why Rabbi Yohanan was concerned with regards to the coming of the Messiah. Now, to confirm that is in Isaiah 40 and 29, whom to whose strength is. He says, he gives power to the faint. He gives power to the faint, and to him that has no might, he increases strength. Now that is God. And then in Jeremiah 30 verse 6 is the one who is suffering. So the suffering God is not a new thing to the Jewish people, or it is not definitely a Christian invention. So I really wanted to share that with you. I believe it has blessed you. Shalom, and God bless you.